Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to pick up where we left off on Monday. We were talking about motivational underpinnings of the self, talking about self-evaluative motives, motives that drive us when we're seeking evaluative information about ourselves, judging evaluative information about ourselves, and so forth. I want to turn to now talking about self-regulation. What does the term self-regulation refer to? Self-regulation has to do with goals in the sense that it refers to the tendencies, behaviors, cognitive, whatever kinds of tendencies that we engage in to change or control our behavior in the service of our goals. So in the service of getting a good grade, in the service of getting to bed at night early, in the service of fostering good relationships, the kinds of things we do to try to meet these goals. Because succeeding at our goals often requires resisting the impulse to do the opposite, resisting temptations. So the goal to do well on your exam requires resisting hanging out too much with your friends or surfing Facebook for too long. Okay, goals, succeeding at them, meeting them often requires resisting temptations, delaying gratification, delaying immediate short-term rewards in the service of long-term goals. So self-regulation involves not only controlling and altering our behavior to meet our goals, it also involves resisting or overcoming impulses that could derail us from achieving our goals. I want to tell you about 3 different kinds of social psychological perspectives on self-regulation. There are many more, but I just wanted to give you a flavor of the breadth of ways you can think about self-regulation. The first one actually is linked up with the self-discrepancy theory we talked about several lectures ago. So if you recall, self-discrepancy theory is a theory that argues that we have ideal selves, these hoped for, dreamed of, ideal visions of the self, and we also have ought selves in addition to our actual selves. We have these hypothetical ought selves, these selves that we feel it is our duty and obligation to be. And I kept using interchangeably with selves the notion of standards. We have ideal and ought standards. In other words, we have goals that reflect our ideal and ought selves. Torrey Higgins, who gave us self-discrepancy theory, expanded that theory to be a theory more explicitly about self-regulation. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Let's see. What's going on here? Oh, there appears to be a missing slide here. Hold on 1 second. This is the slide I want. The theory that the new label for his theory about ideal and ought standards and how it relates to regulating our behavior to meet these ideal and ought standards, he calls it regulatory focus theory. And he calls promotion focus the kind of focus you have when you're really striving or thinking and directing your behavior in terms of your ideal standards. Okay, promotion focus involves regulating behavior with respect to your ideal standards, the hope for, dream for selves that you have, those ideal visions of the self. When you are focused on achieving these ideal visions, you're really focused on the presence, attaining those ideal selves, and really you don't want to have the absence of those ideal selves. So the point is you're focused on ideal selves, these hope for selves, the presence or absence of them. Have I met the goal or have I not attained my ideal standards? That is what a promotion focus is about. I'll give you a more concrete example in a second. I know this is a little bit abstract. A prevention focus is when you are regulating your behavior. I'm a prevention focused person. Okay, this is when you think a lot in terms of ought standards, about your duties and obligations. You are very much focused on meeting those standards and wanting to achieve the presence of having met your ought selves and avoid the absence of negative outcomes. You want these not meeting the ought selves to not be present and meeting the ought selves to be present. Again, I'm going to give you an example of this in a second. So write this down. I know the language is very confusing. I get confused all the time, but when I give a concrete example, you will get it. So write that mouthful down. But here's an example of how you might approach the exam in this class with a promotion focus versus a prevention focus. A promotion focus would be where you're focused on the presence or absence of getting a good grade. Presumably all of us have the desire to get a good grade on exams, so you have the ideal self of getting a good grade on the second exam in this class. If you're relatively promotion focused, what you're thinking about is, what can I do to make sure I get a good grade and to make sure I don't not get a good grade? It's all about a good grade on this positive outcome. Is it going to be present or is it going to be absent? I'm striving for the presence of a good grade and trying to avoid the absence of one. If you're someone who's more ought focused, prevention focused, your focus is on the presence or absence of a bad grade. Your goal is to avoid the presence of a bad grade and hope for the absence of a bad grade. So let that sink in for a second. I think that we all know people in our lives who focus a lot and frame things in terms of the good stuff, the presence or absence of the good stuff. And other people who are more prevention-oriented, their focus is on the bad grade and whether or not it's present. Are you with me? I'm going to give you another example if that's not totally clear. Hopefully this will. Imagine that you have a first date coming up. If you're a promotion-focused person, okay, and so presumably we all want our first dates to go well, if you're a promotion-focused person, you're focused on the presence or absence of having a great time. Okay, you're hoping for the presence of a good time, and you're hoping you don't have the absence of a great time. The focus is on a great time, this ideal self that you have, this ideal standard you want to meet. If you're prevention-focused, like me, okay, you're focused more on the presence or absence of a bad outcome, okay, a crappy first date, making a fool of yourself. I'm really hoping for the absence of making a fool of myself, okay, and I'm really focused on the absence of making a fool of myself and the presence of not making a fool of myself, okay? But the focus is on making a fool of myself versus having a great time. It's a really different framing. You're coming to the situation with a different frame in mind. You might be thinking to yourself, why does this matter? Okay, so what? Yeah, some people tend to focus on getting a good grade or avoiding not getting a good grade, and you might know people who are focused on the bad grade, its presence or absence. Well, it turns out there's an enormous literature showing that situations that you find yourself in, for example, a classroom, a teacher might frame an exam in a promotion or prevention focused sort of way. And when the framing of a situation fits the way you tend to frame things, better outcomes tend to result. And this is what Torrey Higgins would call regulatory fit. When there's a fit between your chronic default tendencies, whether it's promotion and prevention, and the framing of a particular task or situation, whether it's promotion or prevention, greater fit when there's fit. So it's not that promotion or prevention, one of them is necessarily better than the other. Okay, we might want to think that promotion is better than prevention, since it focuses on presence or absence of good outcomes versus presence and absence of bad outcomes, but that's not the case. What matters is the fit between your chronic way of framing situations, framing tasks that you're trying to pursue and achieve at, and the actual framing of the task, like the classroom setting. Am I framing the task, getting a good grade in this class, or failing to get a good grade? Or am I up here going, you better try not to get that D in this class, okay? It's a really different kind of framing. And different people thrive under different kinds of framings. When the framing matches your default tendency, that's when you do better. You're more satisfied, you're more engaged in the task, and a variety of other positive outcomes. Okay? I know it's a little bit hard. I don't think it's not explained better in the textbook. It will be in the next edition. So if you have questions about it, you can mull it over and come to my office hours. But it is quite an enormous literature. And if you can try to generate some of your own examples, like come up with another situation. Okay, how would I approach a job interview if I were promotion focused versus prevention focused. If I was promotion focused, I'm focused on getting the job or the absence not getting the job, or the absence of getting the job. Okay? If I'm more prevention focused, it's about not getting the job. Okay? A really different approach to the same situation or task. Okay, that's one actually very enormous and popular perspective on self-regulation currently in the literature, but here's another one, and this one's a bit easier, I think, to understand. The idea here is that pursuing goals, okay, pursuing these ideal selves, pursuing these alt selves, pursuing getting a good grade, pursuing getting the job, resisting temptations while doing so, controlling our impulses to watch one more episode of Glee instead of studying, okay, controlling these things that could derail us from our goals, it's tiring. It's exhausting. It depletes self-regulatory resources is the idea of this ego depletion model. The idea that when we engage in self-control, such as resisting eating that third piece of chocolate cake, the amount of self-control, self-regulatory resources I have left for a subsequent task is lowered. So engaging in self-control uses up some of your self-control resources, your self-control energy, leaving you with less energy left to exert control on another task. Okay, the metaphor they often use, this model, is that you can think about self-regulatory resources as like a muscle. Having lifted 50 pounds, I've exerted my muscle strength, making it a bit harder for me, having used some of my strength, to then go lift another 50 pounds. Okay? If I hadn't lifted 50 pounds initially, I can lift the subsequent 50-pound weight much easier. So if you hadn't had to sit there and resist, you're sitting at a dinner with friends, there's this big chocolate cake in the middle, and you're sitting there the whole time resisting, taking more and more and more. This is exhausting. If you subsequently need to engage in self-control, maybe you have to bite your lip when your friend says something a little incendiary or something you agree with, you will have less ability to do so is the idea. How do they test this idea that we get depleted, that acts of self-control deplete our resources and ability to engage in a subsequent act of self-control? Here's what they typically do in one of these studies. They will ask participants to engage, they don't call it this, they ask them to engage in an initial task which requires self-control. For example, they might say, okay, watch this video, it's a really emotionally evocative video, but while watching it, do not show any emotion. That takes energy. Suppressing your emotions takes energy. It takes self-control. You see something scary, you're not supposed to go like that, you have to suppress it, okay? That takes energy. It's depleting, okay? Or they might force you to resist eating a plate of warm and gooey and yummy smelling cookies. That's depleting for most of us. It sure as heck is for me, okay? So that's phase one of the experiment. In a second phase of the experiment, they have participants engage in a second task. Again, it's not framed as a self-control task, but it is one that deliberately was chosen because it requires some degree of self-control. For example, they might have confront participants with a really, really difficult task. In fact, the task may be one that contains, unbeknownst to participants, unsolvable problems. Okay, so these are not the nicest experiments to participants. And the idea is how long will people persist on this really difficult task? Less long if they were depleted in the first task. Okay, they might have that exercise thing where you grip it and it's really hard and it's supposed to work out your hands. I have no idea. Is that what it's for? Yeah. Like, is it hand grip? What the hell is it for? Anyway, it's hard. It's exhausting. Okay, it takes self-control to not just go and let it go. Right, you gotta keep it there. And the second task they might have you do in this experiment is to hold it for as long as you can. If you had engaged in a self-control task, suppressed your emotions, for example, in phase one, you hold the hand grip shorter than if you hadn't engaged in that initial self-control task. You with me? Okay. So the upshot is people who engage in self-control in the first task perform worse on the second task relative to those who did not initially exert self-control. Can someone give me an everyday example of this idea that engaging in self-control leaves your pool of self-regulatory resources depleted? Less left for you to deploy on a subsequent task. Anyone other than Alex? Yes, no offense, Alex. Yeah. Like quitting smoking, okay? Addiction, things you're addicted to, okay? That takes a lot of self-regulatory control, okay? If you are somebody who's battling that, the amount of resources you have left to dedicate to studying, resisting, going out with your friends, resisting surfing the web is going to be less than someone who doesn't have that fight against that addiction. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, wait, say it again. So with certain family members, you feel like you have to exert self-control, and there's a breaking point for you. Right. Right. I mean, that's just a longer span of time, but it's the same idea. Okay. He's saying there are certain family members that he feels he has to bite his tongue, exert self-control around, and that over the years, so rather than in the course of a single experiment, over the years, his resources, his ability to do this, and maybe motivation to do that is getting less. Okay. What I thought you were asking, I'm going to come back to that motivation question in a second. Okay. What I thought you were asking is, if you do it enough, can you get so practiced at it that you don't get depleted? Just like when you lift weights a lot, it isn't as depleting because now you've built up your strength, right? That's the metaphor they want to use. Well, they would also argue that over time, if you can get better and better at exerting self-control. So if you have to suppress your emotions while watching a video, 3 times a day for 30 days, presumably you wouldn't get as depleted from this task as somebody who just started engaging this kind of self-control task. But the other thing I wanted to bring up is the question of, is there anything you can do about this? Can you overcome this depletion effect? Okay, let's say it's exhausting, okay, but you really don't want to rock the boat in your house. You don't want to ruin the holidays. So year after year, you're able to engage in that self-control. You're very motivated to do that, okay? And yeah, having motivation can override the depletion effect, suggesting that even though you get depleted from self-control tasks, you're not depleted completely, okay? That with enough incentive, such as motivation to keep the family happy, to make the holidays okay, can make it so that even engaging in a self-control task won't deplete your resources in a subsequent task. Studies have shown if you pay people money to hold the hand grip longer, for example, they can do it and they won't show the ego depletion effect, okay? So, the data is, there's a lot of data supporting the ego depletion effect, but minimally it's not the case that you're ever completely depleted. It has to be a pretty extreme circumstance. And clearly, inducements, incentives. Oh, that's bad. I'm over here and that's doing something over there. All by itself. What's happening? Okay. Goody, I don't have notes either. Okay. But I want to tell you about one final thing while my computer is deciding to update Windows. What are the odds of that, by the way? So there has been recent data, some people challenging this model because they've shown, for example, that if somebody comes in or is induced to have the belief, the lay theory that resources don't get depleted, okay, or they have the theory that they do get depleted, those who don't have the theory, I think it'll reboot, don't you think? Okay, no, we can use yours. Okay, awesome. Okay, no, I need to use mine. There's a my clicker. Yeah, so let's reboot. If, for people who have a lay belief that that self-regulatory resources don't work like a muscle, they actually don't show these ego depletion effects. So something cognitive, a theory, a belief you have, can override this ego depletion effect, suggesting to, that's not good? I'm okay with it. Okay, 70% complete. Okay, did you catch that? Did you hear me? People who have the belief, okay, spontaneously by themselves, or induced to hold the belief that this ego depletion stuff is not true, they don't show it. So any notion, and there are people in the ego depletion literature who want to argue that there's something biological going on, that these resources that are being depleted, it's like sugar in your blood being depleted. And they actually argue that if you drink sugar, like Kool-Aid, you'll have more self-regulatory resources. But that kind of argument doesn't fly if just my lay belief that this doesn't happen allows me not to show these effects. Doesn't fit with this idea that there's something actually biological going on here. Yeah. They just have the opposite theory. They think that they can override these sorts of things. They don't believe that. Hold on one second. So it's people who come into the study who have the lay belief that this kind of thing doesn't happen. There's personality differences in whether we believe this to be true or not. But they can also in the lab make you believe, make you read a scientific study, fake, that says that ego depletion isn't true, or that says that ego depletion is true. And if you elect to believe it's not true, then you don't show ego depletion effects. But the broader point here, besides the specifics, is that if you can move it around like that through just belief manipulations, it suggests it's not something really fundamental, and certainly does not seem like it's something biological that's going on. Yeah?
And if that's the case, then the people that went to the first study, I guess they were blank, right? They didn't have any idea about this. I didn't have any idea about
Okay.
myself. So when you don't know anything about it, you have to decide your own.
Right, you can be manipulated. Yeah.
How come they actually have less control over their habit of engagement self-regulatory? You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
Because the people that watched the movie, they didn't know,
Yeah, right.
they believe it, but they still didn't do that.
You're saying, so how did this actually happen? Like, what was going on in participants? It could be that they're just adhering to their beliefs. I don't remember the details of the study, actually. I mean, I've read it several times. But I think what you're asking is if participants aren't even aware that this is happening in the first pass, that their resources are being depleted.
But they still have depleted resources, and they don't even know it, right? They don't even have.
No, if they're led to believe that's true, then they behave in ways that are consistent with that theory. So.
They were told that? That's the person who knew about the movie.
No. This is a totally separate set of studies that's trying to say that lay beliefs about ego depletion can have an impact on whether ego depletion happens or not.
Exactly. So why did they still show it in the first study when they weren't told anything about the depletion theory?
That's a good point. But remember, in the first study, it's random sampling. We don't know what people are coming in as. I think that the default is that most people, my intuition is that most people believe that it occurs, that the muscle metaphor idea really resonates with people. I don't know what the data on that is, whether that's the case, that more people believe in it than don't. But the other thing is, people aren't making it salient. In the typical study, they're not making it salient. Okay? So I guess it would have to be the case if you really buy this lay belief study that on average more people believe in it than not. Okay, but I'm not endorsing this lay belief study either, although I found it fascinating and it's conducted by really well-regarded researchers. I'm just trying to be fair and balanced here and show you that ego depletion effects are not the end-all be-all. It doesn't have to happen. There are ways to override these things. You don't need to give up, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, that even if you're depleted from a first self-control task, it doesn't mean that this necessarily has to happen. That's all I wanted to put in there. That this is not something to just throw your hands up at. Yeah.
Do you know which group believers or non-believers show stronger self-regulation? Because I would kind of.
You mean outside of this context in general?
Yeah, like if you compare, like for instance, holding the hand grip, if you just without showing them the video verse, you're actually improving more their capacity for self-control.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is it the case that your beliefs about ego depletion reflect your ability to engage in self-regulation? That people who are really good self-regulators, who are really good at resisting temptations, and there are individual differences in this, and they can be captured early on in life. Those of you who have taken Psych 150 know about the marshmallow test, right? That is about self-regulatory control, delay ability. Who knows the marshmallow test? Okay, some of you know. That is self-regulatory ability. He's saying, and it fits, that would be my guess, but I'm not sure, that people who are just good at self-regulation, they're probably the ones who by default don't really believe in ego depletion effects. They're ones who might come into the lab more likely to have the belief that you can override depletion. Oh, really? Why?
My thought, like when you first said that, she said something which is like life is only once, just I want to do what I want to do. Which maybe people who, the people who won't believe in that are the people who just don't choose to regulate themselves.
Okay, well, the point is still that there may be differences as a function of your own self-regulatory ability. Okay, hold on, guys. This is one of those days. Bear with me 1 second. Why is this not working? Okay, we have to use one of yours. Oh, wait. Maybe it's coming.